All right, hello and welcome. We're here today to talk about a commonly overlooked role of electronic 3D measuring. I'm TJ O'Rourke, one of the subject matter experts at iCar, and we are with.
My name is Jeremy Holloway, Director of After Sales at Spinisi Americas.
And it is true, a lot of people, they don't rely as much on 3D measuring as maybe they should be. What do you think are some of the commonly overlooked roles?
So I think, when I put this together, I was thinking back to probably like 4 years of experience doing measuring training, working at Spinisi, and really, we spent a lot of time in the shop teaching technician, employee, all the functions of a measuring system, but what we really don't talk about is how to apply that tool in all the proper places and make sure that, they're understanding why it's important at each phase of the repair where that tool needs to come out to achieve the result of a proper repair. And then, of course, to make them feel like they didn't buy something that just sits in the corner and it's not getting utilized to its full potential. So,
And I think what you said there about each stage of the repair, back in the olden days when I was a technician, you might measure at one time, but it's more important with how these cars are relying on their structural integrity for advanced driver assist systems.
Yep.
That you have to have a structurally accurate foundation for those to work on. So you may have to go back to that equipment more than once to make sure that you have it absolutely right before sending it on down to the next step of repair phase.
Right. And, it's an efficiency thing too, right? We want to take the measurements at the certain times throughout the repair process to plan the next step. So, so I put together some slides, hopefully, kind of gives my perspective on how this whole electronic measuring thing should be implemented in the repair process, the gains that you can have by doing it the right way, or what I feel is the right way, and some of the things that can happen if you don't do it. I think that's important to discuss too. So
Let me pull up the first slide.
So I just kind of wanted to break this up into 4 different sections. So really, we'll just talk about why I think this is important. We kind of covered it a little bit. Core functions in the machine, and we'll talk about all the different places in the repair process that you should probably get that machine out and take a measurement. I want to cover the challenges that you'll face. The challenges with personnel at the shop, challenges with making sure the machine is capable of doing what you want it to do. And then I want to talk about the gains, what you can gain by doing all of these things. So really, modern collision repair, it's essential to have a 3-dimensional measuring system to be accurate and efficient. For years and years and years, we're fighting just to get shops to have one. Now we're like, okay, now we got to get it out. We have to put it to work. We have to, it's got to pay for itself. We got to do all the right things so we don't get ourselves in hot water with a bad repair. And so you have to get it out in all of the right places.
And real quick to mention, like you said, training to make sure that technicians can use it properly is also going to increase efficiency as well.
Yep. So core functions, all the places that I feel that you should get the machine out. To me, this is the most important step. So the most important step is the diagnosis. So really, we feel at my company, and I felt for many years before working at Spinisi, that you need to document the structural condition early in the repair process. You need to get the measuring machine out. And what you're doing there is you're determining an informed path to completion, right? So we know, we're going to, this car's going to flow through the system. We're not going to have any problems with parts fitting. We need to make a structural repair, whether it's going to be on or off the bench, or maybe this thing's gone. Maybe we're not going to invest any more time in it. And then really the efficiency thing is removing variability in the structural repair process. So some of the things, as I go through this, you'll see like at the bottom of the screen, I put like this red text. This is the way I would explain on an estimate, right? This step. We're measuring to identify structural misalignment or deviation. That is justification to take a diagnostic measurement, in my opinion.
Yep, and then again, the earlier in the process that we find that structural misalignment, even before blueprinting is completed, it's only going to help technicians and the shop especially, plan the workflow and make sure that it gets through as smooth as possible, to paint and reassembly and then out the door. So.
Yep. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the pre-measuring results. We touched on a little bit. So in my mind, the 4 things that could be a result of that initial measurement: no damage found. So this is qualified as a non-structural repair now. If you find minor repairable damage by measuring, maybe this is something that just needs some, a straightening repair. Maybe not necessarily a pull or a structural part replacement, but this could be just this decision to repair it on or off the bench. Major damage that needs to go to the structural department is something that you could find, or you could have found a total loss, like I mentioned before. We don't want to waste any more time. The caveat to the total loss find is not finding it when it's already on the bench, or not finding it when you have a cart full of new parts there. And that's real conversations that I've had with technicians. We're measuring a car together, and I say, hey, I just found something pretty significant here, and they're, oh man, we're pretty far into this right now, and so we have to make a decision. So as you can see here in the diagram, that diagnosis step is really important to determine the next place that the car should go in the repair process, and that helps you funnel your work through the shop as efficiently as possible. So we're not doing things like the car's waiting to go on the bench, that we just made a visual determination that it needs to go there, and then we find out it didn't need to go there. Or maybe the vehicle goes through non-structural repair, and then at the end of the job we find out something doesn't fit, or heaven forbid the thing goes back on the road and there's something going on there and it comes back to bite us.
Especially when you are tying up the bench for a specified amount of time, depending on the damage. If you're planning on that to be on the bench and then find out that it doesn't need to be there, that's just taking up time that could be better used on a different vehicle that needs it more.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a lot full of structural repair waiting to get on that bench, it's kind of unnerving to find out that one didn't need to go on there and it sat waiting, right?
So, absolutely.
Considering ADAS calibrations, this is something that has come up in the last recently. I remember I was managing a body shop, and I had a car that had to go on Friday, and the guy's coming to do the calibration last minute, and we're trying to button it up, and he says, oh, did you do a wheel alignment on the car? Well, what do you mean? I got to do a wheel alignment on this car? And we looked at the procedure together, and it said, yeah, you have to do a wheel alignment. But it really makes sense that how could you go without a structural measurement, how could you confidently go wheel alignment and then recalibration, right? If the calibration requires a four-wheel alignment, you really need to have the proof that the structure was in the correct position before you did the alignment, right?
Being a structural technician myself in the past, more than one time I've had to go to, I worked at a dealership, so I went to the service for an alignment, and it would come up way out of spec, and it's got to be the body shop's fault. But it's harder to see aluminum bent or whatnot. But when you have that printout showing that exactly the pickup locations are where there should be, they're within tolerance, to have that documentation to know that that's not where the problem is also good to have documented and in the file.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a structural technician, there were a few cases that we sent the vehicle to the alignment shop, and the term that always comes back is, you didn't pull it right. And we're like, well, no, I did. Here's the paper, right? Like, I have proof that I pulled it right, and there's nothing wrong with it structurally. So that's kind of a liability thing too.
And to have the accuracy of this equipment nowadays and better proof and printouts, it's a time saver, really.
Yep, yep. And I want to mention the bottom stream. It is possible to calibrate a sensor over top of a bent structure, right? You can, how can I say, you can fudge the system to get a calibration through a bad structural repair.
Unfortunately, we've all seen that far too much, and with the improved accuracy of these systems, we have to have the structure where it needs to be for those systems to work properly.
Yep. Steering and suspension. So another place that you can use your measuring system is to diagnose steering parts. So you can measure wheels and tires to see if they're in the proper angle. You can measure individual components, measure a knuckle, measure a control arm, a strut, a rear axle housing. So that's another place that you can utilize your measuring system that is obviously going to generate more repair time and that stuff but it's also an efficiency thing where we're going to find that mechanical damage up front. We're going to plan for that repair, and we're not going to find it on Friday when that car is supposed to go home and the alignment shop calls and says it doesn't align, or heaven forbid the customer drives it down the road and it's pulling one way or the other and something's not right. And then the other one that's in the last few years that has come up, steering column inspections. I know GM and I believe Subaru is requiring.
And also Nissan, yep.
And also Nissan. They're requiring a measurement on the steering column. That's another thing you can do with your measuring system. If it does a simple point-to-point measurement, you can measure a steering column, and then most of them have a way to provide a printout that says that, hey, this steering column either did or did not meet the specification in the repair procedure.
Yeah, that is great to know that, like you said, the simple point-to-point, to get that documented and early enough so we don't have that supplement. For your example, it's got to go on Friday. You want to know that way ahead of time so that it doesn't surprise you.
Yep. So the next step in the measuring process would be the in-process measurement. So we found damage during the diagnosis step. The car goes on the bench, or it could be repaired off the bench. But at this point, we know what's going on with this car. We have all of our parts, our materials there, any kind of specialized tools that we need. We're ready to go. So there's no hang-ups, right? Mm-hmm. We have planned for this thing that we're going to do to the car, and we're not having the estimator come out and do a in-process supplement. We're not finding a total loss at that moment. This is a step that we know what's going to happen now, right? And I put that terminology at the bottom, realign vehicle structure or structural parts to factory specifications. So that would loop in a pull. That would also loop in positioning of a new structural component.
Mm-hmm. Yep, to make sure that it's where it needs to be before welding in something.
Yep.
You got to do that.
Yep. The next one is, this one's becoming more popular. This is another place that you could get the machine out. The final confirmation that the structure was repaired properly. So, and there are even some shops now that it's a different technician that is doing this task of doing a final structural measurement to make sure everything is realigned. So this is the final proof that we didn't make any mistakes during the repair process. We have met the required specifications for where the structure should be.
And then to drive that home, that point home even further, again, to have that documentation for the unnecessary occurrence that, a calibration fails or an alignment fails. You got it here so that it doesn't have to go back on the bench.
Yep. So let's get into the challenges. So what are the things that you're going to face when you're trying to implement these things in the repair process? So I think technicians, right? So you see this picture of this angry technician here, right?
I've worked with him.
Yeah. I have been that guy, right? So, um, implemented implementation versus training. You know, I go into a shop and I'm here to train you on your new measuring system today. I'm going to go through all of the things that this machine can do, how to properly repair cars. But after I leave, what happens? I can give you only so many 8-hour training classes to measure cars, but at some point, the shop's going to have to take the reins and they're going to have to put that thing to work, right?
Hmm.
So, implemented is really functional and integrated into the repair process. Trained is I know the buttons to push, right? So, but if you're going to skip either one of those, you could potentially be exposing yourself to using the machine in the wrong way. You're missing opportunities to collect ROI on that machine. So there's a lot of different things. I get these calls, in not talking about anyone specifically, but if a shop does not implement the tool properly and use it in all the right places, and they just shove it in the corner because sometimes they're just trying to check a box, right? Um, they get that hot car. The hot car is, I got it on the bench, something doesn't fit right, or maybe it made it all the way to the end of the repair and something doesn't fit right, and we need someone to come out and do training right now. And I say, "Yeah, well, I've been there to do training 3 times, 4 times. Um, so at some point, you're going to have to pick this up and put this tool to work for you. And I really feel like when that tool is implemented properly in the process, we have happier technicians, right? The tool is in their hand more. They use it a lot. They see it as a valuable tool that they use on a daily basis. And it creates more value in, you know, I guess my relationship with the shop too, because they see that thing as like a critical part of the repair process and are going to use it all of the time.
Right, and the training, ongoing training, the more that tool is comfortable, or more the technician's comfortable with that tool, the more it's going to help them, and the more efficient they're going to be with it and the whole repair in general.
Yep. So implementation, like I said, it drives ROI. It's and we're coming up on time, so I'm going to.
We got a little time yet, so.
Okay, all right. Implementation drives ROI. So what I always like to tell shop owner when they buy a measuring system is the process should say when the tool comes out and is used. Opinions don't say when the tool comes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can tell you, a lot of times opinions decide to not get the tool out, right? So when this type of damage comes in the door, and you know we this is time to get the measuring system out and take a measurement. So.
Yeah, you do make a large investment. The tool will help you eventually to make that return on investment. So again, the more common the technician uses it, the more comfortable they are, the better.
Yep. So some things to ask yourself: you're going to buy a measuring system, or you have an existing one. Is your software and your database up to current specs? Is the machine still calibrated and functional? Do you have all of the pieces to go with it? You know, that some of them have some pieces that are easy to lose, and then when you need help, who do you call? Right? Do you know how to access tech support? Maybe put in a help desk ticket and that type of thing. Those are going to keep you functional and keep moving forward. So.
And to your point, if it's in the corner, it's not updating the database as much, and that's only going to slow you down when you plug it in, and you'll have to update the software and then the database. And yeah, keep using it just to make sure that the car is structurally accurate, but use it to save yourself some time as well.
Yep. So some of the gains you're going to see increase in quality, right? Measurable increase in customer satisfaction, increased throughput, safer repairs. You're going to reduce waste and rework in the repair process, and then you're going to have that employee that you don't have to butt heads with every time you ask them to measure a car, right? Because they're going to know how to use that tool properly, and they're going to feel confident, right?
Very true.
Efficiency, we touched on it a bunch of times. you know, the car's going to flow through the repair process with an informed plan. So we're not going to have any min repair supplements at least for structural work, and we're going to be able to get the car back to the customer as fast as possible. So additional labor operations. So obviously, if you're buying a tool, you want to be able to pay for it, right? So my feeling is the more cars you're measuring, the more damage you're going to find. The more damage you find, the more labor parts and materials that are going to be part of that repair, and it's going to accelerate your ROI. You're going to get a return on that investment. So
Absolutely, and less supplements.
reduce liability exposure. So obviously you want to get your measuring tool out and use it as much as you can, because heaven forbid if a car leaves your shop and you don't have a measurement, and I think we all know that there is a post-repair inspections are a real thing now, right?
Mm-hmm.
It does happen. So if that happens to you, you should be prepared to say, when the vehicle was in my care, it either had no damage or I repaired it properly while it was here and realigned everything back to factory specs. Very important step. In closing, should always be measuring, right? So hopefully this guy you see here in the picture, he's your employee because you properly train your employee, you put the tool to work for you, using it in all the right steps. He or she is comfortable with using the tool, and 3-step process that I measured: diagnose, repair, and confirm your measurements. Very, very easy process to follow, and then hopefully, no pun intended, you're measuring your success. You're going to see increased quality and efficiency. Employees are going to be confident. You're going to have reduced liability exposure for improper repairs, and then, you paid for that tool, right?
Very true, very true. And all those things are great, and all benefits of shops.
Yep. So appreciate everyone, spending time with us here today, and I appreciate the opportunity. If anyone has any questions for me, my contact information is there. I'd be happy to discuss all the things I talked about here further. And
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for spending some time with us, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks a lot.